What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. It's time for the top 10 bowl games of the 2022-23 bowl season. You know, these bowl games just don't mean as much as they used to with all the opt-outs. And, you know, I've said this before, for a lot of these teams, it's not really an end to the 2022 season. It's really a beginning to the 2023 season because a lot of opt-outs, a lot of young players get a chance to play in these games, and you really start to look towards the future. And that's kind of what it's become ever since the playoff got here. Next year we'll have, or year after next, we'll have a 12-team playoff, so these bowl games will mean even less, but we get more meaningful postseason games with all those playoff games. So it's, you know, it's a good thing and a bad thing. But I think there are a lot of bowl games this year that are still very intriguing. A lot of games where I think both teams want to be there. Some games where it's really going to give us an idea of maybe how good a team really was this year, or maybe how good they could be next year. A lot of storylines for these games. Of course, at this point, we don't know all the opt-outs, so some things could change from what I say in this video. But when we talk about top 10 bowl games, again, it's the most intriguing games, the games that I think will be the most exciting, competitive, all those type of things. You put them together and try to make these rankings. So I'm going to start with 10, work my way up to number 1. These are my top 10 bowl games for this season. We start with number 10. This is a game that probably would not have been on this list a few days ago. It's the Fenway Bowl. This game will actually be next Saturday, December 17th, one of the first bowl games. It'll be at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, so an early game. Cincinnati, Louisville favored by 2. This game's on ESPN, but the reason why this game is so exciting now is because, of course, Scott Satterfield, the head coach at Louisville, he just took the job at Cincinnati, which is still, I'm still trying to kind of figure out why he would do that. I know Cincinnati now moving up to the Power 5, moving into the Big 12, and maybe he sees that as a better job, whatever the case may be. But anyways, this is just because of that a really interesting matchup here, and you're gonna have, you know, maybe some anger from the Louisville players, and maybe they try to take it out on Cincinnati in this game. It's just one that, again, with that storyline, makes it intriguing, and that's really the only reason why it made it onto this list. When we talk about these two teams on the field, they should be pretty even. Again, I think that's why the spread is only 2 points. So I do think it'll be a very close, exciting, competitive game, and looking forward to seeing what happens in that one. Let's move on to the Alamo Bowl at number 9. This one will be at 9 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday night, December 29th. You got number 20 Texas, number 12 Washington. Texas favored by 6. This game will be on ESPN. Quinn Ewers will be there. He'll be playing. Michael Penix already, I believe, said he was coming back next year, so he should be playing in this game. Shouldn't have a ton of opt-outs. And this is one of those games where we really look at Washington and, you know, how good really were they this year? Didn't play too tough of a schedule, but they were right there at 10-2. So we find out, you know, maybe how good they really are. And then for Texas, it's how good can they be next year with a lot of young players. It's all about looking forward to next season. And again, both teams should be motivated in this one. Should be a good one there in the Alamo Bowl. Let's go next to the Gator Bowl. This one will be on Friday, December 30th at 3:30 Eastern time, at 2:30 Central time. Notre Dame favored by 3.5. This game will be on ESPN. You're talking about two 8-4 teams. Both teams ranked very similar, 19-21. Tyler Buckner expected to be back for Notre Dame in this game. Of course, Drew Pine entered the transfer portal, which was surprising after he took over this year and did a pretty good job for them. But I think Tyler Buckner is the future, and he could see that, and he's going to be back for this game. So again, two very even teams, two teams that both beat Clemson. Matter of fact, the only two teams to beat Clemson this year. So this one, I think, just sets up to be a really exciting game, a close game. Probably a little bit on the lower end as far as scoring goes, and I think the over-under would back that up at 52. But I do expect it to be a one-score, one-possession type game that comes down to the fourth quarter, and should be a good matchup there in the Gator Bowl. Next is the Cheez-It Bowl. This one will be on Thursday, December 29th at 5:30 Eastern time on ESPN. Florida State favored by 7.5. The Seminoles really finished this year strong. you have a long time before these bowl games, so you wonder, Oklahoma, can they get some things fixed on defense? They've still got an explosive offense that is for the most part played well for them this season. And then Florida State, like I said, they're playing with a lot of momentum, but now some time off, maybe that could hurt them a little bit, where I think it could help Oklahoma. But we're talking about two powerhouse programs, two teams that I grew up with, with being right there in the national championship picture every year, going back to the 90s and the 2000s. So it's just a really fun matchup, in my opinion, seeing these two programs go at it. Oklahoma, Florida State in the Cheez-It Bowl. Florida State, it feels like they should be able to take care of business in this one. But like I said, with some time off, maybe Oklahoma gets some things fixed. And something about the Big 12. The Big 12 has done really well in bowl games. We've seen that over the last few seasons. And I was just kind of looking back at this season and the Big 12 and their big non-conference matchups, and they really did pretty well. Remember, Kansas State went out and dominated against Vanderbilt. Oklahoma blew the doors off of Nebraska. Go back and look at Texas almost beating Alabama. I can't remember all the games, but we saw some pretty good performances from the Big 12, but a very small sample size. And then, of course, the rest of the season, these teams are just beating up on each other. So maybe the Big 12 is really good, and maybe Oklahoma's better than that 6-6 record. We'll maybe find out, and that's something I think that we're going to find out about the Big 12, because they've got a lot of really intriguing matchups. We've already talked about Texas and Washington, now Oklahoma, Florida State. We find out a lot about the Big 12, I think, this bowl season. And again, Oklahoma, Florida State, both teams should have a lot of guys playing in this one. Shouldn't be too many opt-outs. All right, how about the Orange Bowl? This one will be on Friday, December 30th, 8 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN. Clemson, yes, is favored by 7. I know there's no Hendon Hooker here for Tennessee, but Joe Milton's still a pretty good player, and we saw them light up that Vanderbilt team. I expect the Tennessee offense to be ready to roll in this one. We've seen Clemson struggle at times, so I am personally surprised that Clemson is favored by a touchdown. I could see them favored by 2 or 3 points, but that seems like a pretty big number. Cade Klubnik, with him in there, looked great in the ACC Championship, of course, but now that he is the guy, it gets a little bit more pressure on him. He's the starter. There is no DJ Uiagalelei. He's entered the transfer portal, so you wonder how he will play in this game. And again, this one I think is just a really intriguing matchup. These two programs going at it here in the Orange Bowl. Both teams have orange colors. There's just a lot to like about this matchup, and I think it'll be a good one. I think it'll be close. 7's not a huge number there, but I think it will be a close one, probably a one-score game. And we look to the future for Tennessee without Hendon Hooker. What is that going to look like? And for Clemson, I think you may have a lot of opt-outs. So that's why, again, I think that number is pretty big at 7. And it wouldn't have surprised me even if Tennessee was favored in this game. Okay, we go now to the Holiday Bowl. This one's at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Fox. Oregon favored by 11. This is a team that didn't really finish the way they wanted to. North Carolina really didn't finish the way they wanted to. Two teams that did not finish the season very well. A high-powered offense there for North Carolina. Can they get their act together? Drake May was one of the best quarterbacks all year. Bo Nix, also, when he was healthy. You're talking about two quarterbacks that were in that Heisman conversation just a few weeks ago. And to see those two go at each other, I think it'll be a great game, a shootout, a high-scoring game. I do think Oregon, it's understandable that they are favored, I think, because of their defense. North Carolina has struggled on that side of the ball. But I think it'll be a shootout, and it'll be exciting. Even if it's not a game that comes down to the final possession, I still think this will be a really fun matchup here in the Holiday Bowl. Number 4, the Sugar Bowl. This one's at noon Eastern Time on ESPN. Alabama favored by 4. Only 4 against Kansas State. That surprised me, although I think Kansas State might actually win this game. I just figured Vegas, as much as they like Alabama, I thought they'd have them favored by double digits. But no, and will Bryce Young play in this game? Will Will Anderson play in this game? I kind of doubt it, but I don't know for sure what's going to happen there. That obviously will change things. I think if those players don't play in this game, I feel very confident in picking Kansas State. We've seen it before with Alabama. Lack of motivation because they don't have a chance to play for a national championship. We could see that here again this season, and we're talking about a Kansas State team that is going to be motivated. A chance to knock off Alabama, a chance to prove that they were indeed a top 10 team, a team that, of course, won the Big 12 championship. They will be motivated in this game. And so we find out, was Alabama really as good as everyone keeps saying? A lot of people say, really is a top 4 team. They just lost 2 games in the final 2 plays. Or is it going to swing to the other side where you have some other people saying, look, they struggled this year. They had a lot of games that they won that were really close that they could have lost. So we find out, I think, a lot about Alabama in this game. And if they're as good as everyone that's making this argument says, then they should be able to win this game even without Bryce Young. We'll find out. I think Kansas State probably wins this game, just kind of my gut feeling. But I'd like to see who all is going to play in this game. Also, Adrian Martinez coming back. Should he even be the starter? Will Howard's played pretty well. Kansas State, I think, is the real deal. And you look at their losses, their 3 losses, all 3 of those games are really close as well. All right, how about number 3, Penn State, Utah. This is, I think, the best game outside of the playoff matchups. It'll be at 5 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. It's the Rose Bowl. Utah favored by 2.5. This will be actually on not New Year's Day, but the next day. This is the day that's kind of set aside as the holiday for New Year's Day. But for Penn State, we saw them lose to Ohio State and Michigan, 2 great teams, and they really didn't play any other good teams. So we really find out a lot about Penn State. Finally, they get an opportunity to play another good team. And Utah, I think, proved themselves, and they're going to be ready for this one after losing a close one in the Rose Bowl last year. 2 teams that I think are going to be really motivated, really have a lot to prove, and I think it's just going to be a great game, and that's why I've got it at number 3. All right, we go to the playoff matchups, of course, for 2 and 1. At number 2, it's TCU, Michigan. This game will be at 4 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday, December 31st. Michigan favored by 7.5. That line has been moving a little bit. I think it was closer to 9 at one point. It'll be on ESPN, of course. Again, this is a playoff semifinal matchup, as you all know. And I go back to that point earlier about the Big 12 and how they have played in these postseason games in the past. Go back to TCU and what they did when they got left out of the playoff back a few years ago. They're going to be highly motivated. They're going to be the underdogs in this game. Max Duggan probably won't win the Heisman, and he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. And so this is a TCU team that I think will be really motivated against a really good Michigan team. I think it's going to be a great matchup. I actually think it's going to be close. A lot of people think Michigan will pull away in the second half. TCU's been a great second half team themselves, and I think it'll be one that comes down to the wire. I am really looking forward to this matchup. If I had to pick, I'd probably go with Michigan, but I think TCU has a legitimate chance. And like I said, I think this will be a great game. And then finally, it's Ohio State, Georgia, 8 o'clock Eastern time on New Year's Eve. ESPN, Georgia favored by 6.5. We saw LSU light up that Georgia secondary. Can Ohio State do the same? I think they're going to score points. I really do. And for Georgia, it's going to be more about, can they run the ball like Michigan did? Can they kind of slow this game down a little bit? It'll be a very similar blueprint. It worked for Michigan. Georgia is a similar team to Michigan. And so you have to kind of like Georgia in this one, but it's going to be a highly motivated Ohio State team. A lot of people saying they shouldn't be in the playoffs, so they're going to be fueled for this one. They're going to be ready to go, and I think it's going to be a close game, a great game, seeing these two go at it. Ohio State versus Georgia, 2 powerhouses in college football. I think that's going to be your best bowl game or semifinal game this season. What do you guys think? How would you rank the bowl matchups? Which ones are you most looking forward to seeing? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.